I remember driving into Baghdad for the first time. It was just the traffic was extremely heavy. There's no traffic lights and there's no direction. It's just kind of chaotic. People seemed really confused. Things weren't running properly. There was gas shortages. There was power outages. The following day, they're going to tear down the statue, and it was almost too much at once. People's patience were starting to thin, and you can see it. They wanted an immediate government. They want to really hurry up and move on with their lives. Get their businesses back up and running and just get that normalcy again. A lot of them obviously didn't have jobs, and they need to support a family and their kids. And since there was no law enforcement to monitor things, people were just grabbing whatever they could. People were looting the nuclear site and bringing some of this material home. We found out their family members were getting sick. One girl we met was getting 4 or 5 nosebleeds a day. I think people were just running and grabbing things without realizing what it was. There's just a lot of unknowns working in Iraq. There's a lot of hidden dangers that you don't know about. The house we stayed in, I remember transmitting photos one night, and I heard a gunshot. A guy was walking by this house and flirted with this guy's sister, and the brother went up shooting the guy walking by. I mean, everywhere I was going, somebody had a gun. AK-47s, just all kinds of arsenal. We're just driving down the street. All of a sudden, gunfire erupted. My driver immediately stopped the car. We got out. Immediately, I looked for an escape route in case they started coming after me. The looters were shooting at some residents who were just trying to protect the building itself. I remember one instance, there was a massive traffic jam, and the U.S. soldiers came up to our car and were just pounding on it, just angry. As we moved up closer to the scene, found out a U.S. soldier got shot in the back of the head. So when I went ahead with my job, I was always looking and observing people. I was getting dirty looks from certain people, and I kind of just walk away from that. And I always smiled. I always try to crack jokes through my interpreter. I always try to relax the situation. There was one mistake I did make where I took a picture next to the Iraqi tank that was blown up, and I remember some residents just coming out and yelling and screaming. I didn't realize at the time, but it was their pride that I was kind of stomping on. And especially after going through this dictatorship. The Olympics in Athens were the following year, and we still have athletes out there were trying to qualify. They continued to practice, but under no guidance. They're actually free. The Iraqi soccer team actually made it to the Olympics in Athens the following year. Slowly but surely, you can see people start to go back to their lives. The mass graves that were unearthed, they were never allowed to unearth those. One mass grave I fell upon, they found 3,100 bodies. And I still remember the stench from that. The mothers screaming and crying because they found their son. I think there was a certain excitement too, because they basically have a new country now and they feel free. They estimated about 1 million people marching from all parts of the country down to Karbala for this religious pilgrimage. That was never allowed under Saddam's regime. And there's people all over the country hiking, walking, for 4 days. You saw people walking down the railroad tracks. You saw people walking down the road, people with blisters on their feet. It was a real sacrifice, but it was also just the enthusiasm was amazing. The thing I was worried about the most was how these people were going to perceive me or accept me. But I found a lot of them wanted me to tell their story. They wanted the world to know what was going on there. I found a father, his son was a Republican guard, and he was looking for his son because he found out he got killed along the Tigris River. We found a body, and at that point he started wailing and crying, and I asked him, if we can follow him back, taking his son's body back home, which was 3 miles north of Baghdad. I was a little bit nervous because, I'm going to a Sunni neighborhood. Are they going to accept me? I took that chance. I had to trust my driver, and he thought it was going to be okay. And the car arrives, and the casket shows up, and immediately the wailing of the women and the guys crying. At one point, the gentleman asked me to maybe not photograph the women, crying, and I respected that. And kind of walked away, went to another area. After the morning, we walked to the cemetery and buried the soldier. And the biggest surprise to me of the whole thing was the people came up to me thanking me for being there. And these were Sunnis. They were Saddam supporters. I think the father really wanted to tell the story of what happened to his son. I think he wanted to humanize what was going on and not just look at it as his son working for Saddam as a bad person. Maybe he just needed a job. Whether we have differences or not, They knew I was American. They knew I was there documenting what's going on, and I was a little bit nervous, going in, like, this could be dangerous. But I felt like I really had to tell the story. I had to tell the other side. Yeah, you have your Sunnis and your insurgents, and that's just a small part of the population. For the most part, the majority of them, I felt their frustrations. They live normal lives, they eat, they drink, they have jobs. They just want peaceful lives. That's all they want for their kids. Whether you agree with their religion or not, it's not for us to say. We may have this preconceived notion of what this country is or what they're like, but all the people I've met there that treat me like one of their own, my driver, Amar, I think back a lot at how he's doing and some of the translators we used, and even the armed guard that stood outside our house with an AK-47. He spoke in broken English, but we managed to communicate and have a little humor, and just those things really stick with me. And about 6-7 months later, the restaurant we would go to, there was a bombing, injuring a couple of our reporters and injuring my driver, Amar. And that really affected me. I wanted to be there for him, and a couple of the other translators that were in our house that we worked with, they got injured, and it really brought reality back to life. I just hope that country one day will have peace and they can live their lives like everybody else. They want normal lives like we do. So it's, I hope all the best for them.